Well, good day to you. It is April the 26th, 2025. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. And just take a brief moment, if you didn't know this already, that I do think the best thing to do after listening to this video, if you want to see if this is true for you, if you want to get some background information for yourself or whatever, to do some investigating. Okay, now if you check out some of the information on some of the websites that I provided links for in the description portion of these videos, you'll get some really good information that you need to help in that investigation. So check out the Share International site. Link is at the very top. You can get the best background information there than you can anywhere else. So hopefully you'll do it because the information is free and it is very helpful. You want to come back and join the discussion? Post a comment, let me know what you think. You could ask a question or two by posting your question in the comment section, and then I'll try to answer it in the next video, or you can email me that question to searchforsigns@mail.com. Now, typically, I have a background image of some of the masters in Maitreya, and then in the center is the SOP Save Our Planet logo. This background is a little bit different, and I wanted to share this because I thought this was so funny. A friend of mine found this on Instagram, and he's a coworker friend of mine, and every time we have group chats and so forth, and text chats and so forth, he always answers in a meme. That's kind of the way he likes to communicate. So he found this meme, and I thought it was so funny based on the fact that what I talk about here with the Christ and the needing of love in the world, but also in the fact that my name is Gary. So what did this have to say? He said, so Jesus is speaking, of course, to his followers on the Mount. Be kind to everyone. And then someone says, wait, even Gary? Yeah, Gary's the worst. And apparently they've had this discussion before, and Jesus said, look, we've been through this. Yes, be kind to Gary as well. Well, thank you, Jesus, for that. And then the Gary in the crowd says, ha, suck it, losers. And then if you see the image of Jesus in this last frame, he's got his hand over his head. I'm sure he's shaking his head. And just like I am sure several of these masters have done, probably even Maitreya has done, after seeing what I've done in my life and what I've said and how I think from time to time, said, not now, Gary. So anyway, I thought this was so funny. But anyway, thank you for letting me share that with you guys. Hopefully you guys got a good laugh out of that too. Now, I had some questions that came my way from an individual, and I want to set this up because this needs kind of some setup work. Okay, so this person who asked this question believes he's Maitreya. I'm not reading into that. He's actually said he's Maitreya. He's actually commented on my channel that he's Maitreya. And if you go to his YouTube channel, he has videos where he's talking about himself being Maitreya. And I've had some people over the years that have said that they were Maitreya, and this person's kind of unique because he actually will ask me questions where the others that have thought themselves to be Maitreya did not ask any questions. They were certain of it, and they told me just how certain they were of it and how certain I was wrong that I didn't believe that they were Maitreya. So this person's a little bit different. And he's commented over the I don't know, it's been over a year now or so. It's been, quite a bit of time. And some of his questions are very insightful, but he asks questions a lot about Maitreya, and a lot of them lead to his own belief about him being Maitreya and so forth. So I need to kind of set this question up before I try to answer it. And this goes for anybody's beliefs on anything. So I have people that ask questions that do not agree with what I have to say. And I don't mind trying to address questions to answer somebody that doesn't agree with what I have to say. But truly my take on it is this, my perspective, because he asked me my perspective, is whatever you believe, and we all have different beliefs, right? What do they say about beliefs? They're like the you-know-what holes, right? We all have them. We all have different beliefs, and that's fine. I don't expect people to believe everything that I believe or see life exactly how I see life. I mean, that's just nonsense. But if what you believe, whether it's your spiritual beliefs, your political beliefs, your own identity, right? Whatever it is, if that makes you a better, more loving person, more willing to serve humanity in a way, then I'm all for it. And you can believe whatever you believe, and I have no quarrel with your belief. If what you believe whether that's your spiritual beliefs, your religious beliefs, your political beliefs, your economic beliefs, whatever your ideological beliefs are, or even what you believe about yourself, does not make you a more loving person, perhaps makes you more hardened toward other people, less likely to help somebody else, then you might want to change your beliefs, right? But other than that, I have no quarrel with anybody's beliefs. So just as I have no quarrel with this person's beliefs. But I do feel like he's kind of blocking me into a corner on some of these questions, because it also is awkward for me, because I encourage people to ask questions. And then I feel sometimes like I'm smacking somebody back. And so then it's not really fair to them. And it's also not fair to me, to do this. And again, it's not my place to tell somebody what to believe or what not to believe. But this person, and he knows he's done this, he's asked questions over the times that he's asked questions, and some of them have been kind of similar and worded a little differently, but they're all kind of going in the same direction. This question, I do think, is kind of the same way. So maybe I'm reading into it because he didn't ask me directly about himself, but maybe this is just my own prejudice based on his questions, based on his YouTube channel, and even based on the postscript in this own comment here. But so I'm going to try to answer it in two ways. One is based on my own prejudice on his answer, or his question, and kind of what he said over the years. And then the other one is the general way in which he's truly asking this. So what do I mean? I'd like to ask your opinion on Maitreya. What do you think will separate him from us? Like, what will make him different from us, as in his qualities, gifts, perspective on life and humans, history, etc. Also, as I understand it, Maitreya will be just like one of us, right? Just another human being, albeit overshadowed by Lord Maitreya. What do you make of that? Is the normal man being overshadowed different from Maitreya, or do they become one? How does it work from your perspective? Thank you, your brother. Well, thank you for the question. All right, so, my prejudicial way of answering it, or what I'm thinking you're truly asking it, based on my own prejudice, I guess is a better way of saying it, is I'd like to ask your opinion on Maitreya. What do you think will separate him from you, right? Like, what will make him different from you, as in his qualities, gifts, perspective on life and humans, history, etc. So if you're really not asking it from that perspective, I apologize. But I'm going to try to answer it anyway, because I do think it's something to kind of look at for all of us too. And I'm going to answer it starting off with telling you a story, which actually happened. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I was visiting the Philippines, and at this one moment, I was waiting at the gate to board a plane. And it was I was about to board a Pacific Airlines flight, and it was a Airbus A330 plane. And at some time while I was waiting to board the plane, this young boy, who was about, it couldn't have been more than 5, was playing with a toy Airbus A330 that he had gotten at the gift shop right next to the gate. And it was the same plane, the Philippine Airlines plane, Airbus A330 plane that we were about to board, right? But it was a toy, right? He's just playing with it in his seat, right? Nothing wrong with that. He was just playing with it in his seat. Now, based on your own beliefs and based on some of the questions that you've asked, and this is kind of the same question, what would separate him from you, right? Like, what separates this young boy from the pilot that's about to fly the plane, right? Is basically what you're asking in an analogous kind of way, right? So this kid playing with the plane's not hurting anybody. He's just playing with the plane. But what if he were to tell me I could fly that plane? Now, would I entertain it and say, "Oh yeah, sure, of course you could," or would I laugh it off, or would I say, "Yeah, right, buddy," or what or would I tell him he would never be ever be able to fly that plane? I don't know that to be true, because he could be sitting there aspiring to be a pilot, and then go through all what you have to do to become a pilot, like grow up for one thing, right, and then become an adult, and then go through all the education and the training and get the licensing and so forth in order to be able to be qualified to fly a plane. He might eventually be able to do that. So I couldn't sit there when he was 5, just a few weeks ago, and tell him he'll never be a pilot, right? I can't say that. I don't know. But I will tell you one thing. If he was about to go fly that plane for real, I would not sit on the back of that plane, because we would not make it anywhere. We'd all die, right? Just as if he had told me that I could fly that plane, I would have to give him the same answer. I'm not qualified to fly that plane. Oh, sure you are. If that pilot can fly the plane, so can you. And it doesn't mean that I couldn't learn it, right? I'm a little old now, but I could go through the education just like he could, right? And then in a certain time, if I passed all the tests and got the licensing, yeah, I could fly it. But as of now, if I sat in that cockpit, the only thing that I could recognize is the altimeter, the yoke, and the throttle. And that's it. I wouldn't know what any of those other buttons and knobs meant, right? Just as a kid wouldn't. Now, in that scenario, right, because I've also had people ask me, well, what gives you the right to be able to think that that person isn't Maitreya, right, or whatever, right? Had he told me that he was able to qualify to fly that plane, and I said, no, you're not, and his mother looked at me and goes, well, what gives you the right to be able to say that? Do you know how to fly a plane? Well, no, I'd have to answer, no, I don't know how to fly. But well, then how would you be able to tell whether this kid could fly the plane or not? A hunch? I guess. I don't know. You know what I mean? I just know that the kid couldn't fly the plane. So, like I said, it doesn't mean that he will eventually not be able to fly a plane. It just means at that moment in time, he can't, right? And it's the same thing with you, right? I've already seen Maitreya. I already know Maitreya. I don't hang out with him on the weekends, but I've seen him throughout my life. And every time I've seen him, even though he's looked differently because he's created a different person for me to see, that person was just a thought form. That person did not have a history of itself. It was just there for me to teach me something. But even though that familiar looked different every single time, I recognized him every single. He didn't have to tell me he was Maitreya. I recognized him instantly because of the love, the wisdom that was emanating from him, and the teachings that he was already giving me. So it's a totally different thing, just as it's a totally different thing between that young boy that was playing with the plane in a chair, waiting to board the same plane that I was about to board, and the actual pilots that were flying the plane. So like I said, I'm not qualified to fly a plane. So what would give me the right to be able to tell that kid he couldn't fly that plane right now? It's just something about him. I guess is all I can really say. And it's the same kind of deal, right? Now, in the general sense, what separates Maitreya from any one of us is nothing. We are all one. But we are all one. We are all harmony and diversity. We're all different. We're all unique. That's the whole point. We're not unified. It doesn't mean that we all just congeal together and become one massive organism. But we're all different. We all have different perspectives, different uniques, different histories, different takes on life. But yet we're all, in a very real sense, in the truth, we're all one. So Maitreya would say there is no difference between you and him. But it doesn't mean that you are Maitreya, just as it doesn't mean Maitreya is you in that sense. But we are all sharing the same divinity. That divinity is the self. That's the same thing that these masters identify with 100% of the time. But yet they are unique. They're very different. Their qualities are very different. Their teaching would be the same, but very different. Their take on it would be very different. And when looking at it from an artistic standpoint, the master painters all were manifesting divinity. Rembrandt, Da Vinci, Caravaggio, let's see, who else? I'm trying to think, Raphael, right? But yet their paintings were all very different. But yet they're all sharing the same divinity. But there is no difference between, there is no separation between anything in the cosmos and any one of us at any time. It's all happening within the self. The self is not affected by any movement within consciousness at any time. It doesn't change the self at all. That's the only permanence in all of cosmos is the self. But yet it's beyond this. It's beyond cosmos, just a little bit, right? But the other thing too is how they manifest their divinity is at a greater level than any one of us. So Maitreya would say every one of us are divine. Just as he is divine, just as any one of these masters are divine. Any spiritual teacher that we look up to, like Jesus or Muhammad or the Buddha or Krishna, whatever our faith and our tradition is, right? We look up to them. They would all say the same thing. We're all one and the same. Jesus said, greater things than this shall you do yourself even, right? Totally missed by all the people in the churches, but yet expressing that truth that we are all sharing the same divinity. He's no better than anybody else. He's not God and we're not, right? So in that way, there is no separation. But the only thing that differentiates any one of us is the measure of which we manifest that divinity. We are all manifesting divinity at a different level. They've manifested at a deeper and higher level, more permanent level than you and I do. But from a higher perspective than them, they're just aspirants. They're just aspiring to be them. So these masters, and when we become a master, that's not the finite end of everything. They see beyond them vistas and higher levels than of consciousness than we could possibly imagine. The term consciousness doesn't even do it justice, but they're aspiring to something higher, have chosen to stay here and help humanity. So rather than them just going off and progressing very rapidly on those levels, they've chosen to and sacrificed the time to help us get to that level. That's their service that they're doing. But Maitreya embodies that divinity which is latent within all of humanity. Eventually, it will not be latent within all of humanity. Eventually, we will all, every single person on this planet will manifest that divinity just as these masters manifested, but not at this time. Just as that young boy playing with the plane is not capable of flying a plane at the time that I saw him. But if I come back 30 years later, he might very well be able to fly a plane, right? And it's the same thing. Maitreya already gave a very good, I think it's a mantra. I don't even think it's a prayer, but it's entitled The Prayer of the New Age. It says, I am the creator of the universe. I am the father and mother of the universe. Everything came from me. Everything shall return to me. Mind, spirit, and body are my temples for the self to realize in them, my supreme being and becoming. The supreme being is the self, which needs no becoming. It already is. That truth is already in existence right now. It doesn't need to go anywhere. It doesn't need to evolve to any state. It already is what it is and will always be what it is. Being, the supreme being. The becoming is the evolution. The more we evolve, the more we experience that oneness, more we experience who and what we truly are as divine. But yet the self never changes. That witness, which is witnessing all of what you see, is not changing whatsoever. But that's the divinity that these masters identify with. The becoming aspect of it, they've just started to manifest that consciousness, that divinity, more than we can. And they're, like I said, they're here to show us how to manifest it ourselves. Does that make sense? So, and then lastly, in terms of the overshadowing part of it, the only person I know who was overshadowed by a master was Ben. I'm not saying that I haven't met anybody else, but he's the only one that I knew who was overshadowed by a master. But he was unique. He was a unique person. So was his master, is a unique human being or master or whatever, right? They didn't melch into one person with one consciousness. He was just working through Ben at that time, telepathically. It's a process that I don't understand because I've never had that happen to me. But Ben retained total uniqueness even though his master was still working through him. He didn't claim to be his master. He just claimed to be Ben, and then he also claimed to be able to be overshadowed by one of these masters. He was also overshadowed by Maitreya. It didn't make him Maitreya. That energy of Maitreya was working through him. Maitreya was in London. Ben was giving a lecture in San Francisco or New York or Tokyo or LA or wherever, the Netherlands, and Maitreya would overshadow him at the end of every lecture, but it didn't make Ben one with Maitreya where he was Maitreya. You know what I'm saying? So the world teacher's way of approaching humanity was to overshadow a disciple like Jesus, like the Prince Gautama, like Muhammad, like Krishna, like Zoroaster or Moses or one of these other world teachers all throughout our history. that have always come at the beginning of every age. They have always had a disciple that was advanced enough to be able to withstand the consciousness of one of these masters, the world teacher, and they would become the world teacher for that time. But now we're moving into a different time. Now Maitreya has to come back himself. He's not overshadowing anybody else. He is that teacher who did overshadow Jesus, is coming back into the everyday world because he and these masters have to come back because we have the technology to be able to destroy ourselves. The other thing, based on your questions and your comments too, is that these masters, all of these masters, know who they are 100% of the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they never, ever, ever, ever need to be told who and what they are. Maitreya does not need to be told that he is Maitreya. He already knows he's Maitreya. He also doesn't need to go around telling anybody who he is, because that would defeat the purpose of anything. That would also infringe the free will of everyone who he told. If he said, I am Maitreya, you need to believe me, or I am Maitreya, I'm here to open up the hearts of all of humanity, that would infringe on the free will of anyone he said. And these masters do not infringe upon the free will of anyone. So the times that I saw Maitreya, and other people have seen Maitreya, I have known probably 100 or so people who have already seen Maitreya like I have. Not one person ever said that Maitreya said he was Maitreya. But everyone recognized him as Maitreya. That's the difference. Does that make sense? I love you guys. Thank you very much for the questions, and I love the questions and the comments, and I look forward to talking to you guys again in the very near future. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.